Hi, everybody. My name is Linda Abraham, and I'm the president of Accepted and the moderator for today's webinar. Welcome to How to Finance Your Medical School Journey, to be presented by Caryn Ganeles of CommonBond. Probably the only topic that causes as much anxiety as how to get into medical school is how to pay for it. And that's why we have invited an expert in student finance to speak here today. We're going to be discussing the costs associated with medical education, as well as different ways to fund that education. Caryn is going to provide an awesome overview as well as concrete options. Before we start, I have a few housekeeping items. Caryn may ask some questions during the presentation and ask you to raise your hand in response. You can do so by clicking on the hand icon, two icons underneath the horizontal orange arrow on your control panel. Please, as usual, we're looking forward to answering all your questions, and we set aside time for Q&A. So feel free to enter your questions in the question window, and we'll review the questions submitted and choose those that have the broadest application. If we don't have time to get to your specific question, we'll be providing general options for you to get your answers at the end of the webinar. Now, just a bit about our presenter and her company, CommonBond. CommonBond was founded in 2012 by some UPenn MBA students. Its core mission is to make education, specifically graduate education, more accessible by lowering the cost of financing that education. There are other elements that make CommonBond distinctive, but we will learn more about them later from Caryn, who is the Business Development Manager at CommonBond. Caryn has been successfully helping borrowers solve their student loan issues for the last several years. She received her BS in Communications from Cornell University, and she looks forward to helping you finance your medical school education. Just a fun fact about Caryn, her first job was at NBC Page, where she helped seat audience, was as an NBC Page rather, where she helped seat audience members at shows like Late Night with Jimmy Fallon and Saturday Night Live. She also traveled with the Today Show to London for 2011's royal wedding. Accepted is delighted to be hosting this webinar for CommonBond. Caryn, the floor, or should I say the mic and screen, are all yours.
Thank you so much, Linda, and thank you for that great introduction. Hi, everyone. As Linda said, my name is Caryn, and that is Caryn with a C and a Y, if that helps you remember. Not K-A-R-E-N, but C-A-R-Y-N. And I am thrilled to be here to present how to finance your medical school journey for Accepted. So let's jump right in. So here's what we'll be covering today. First, financing options. So we'll look at the types of loans and other financing options for you when considering your medical school journey. And then next, we'll look at the repayment options, including income-based repayment versus standard repayment, public service loan forgiveness. I bet a lot of you have questions about that. And lastly, student loan refinancing. So first, I want to get to know the audience a bit better here. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first poll question, which is, where are you in your medical school journey?
Okay,
let's see here.
Get that one out. There we go.
Excellent. So if you could select undergrad student, so if you are an undergrad student, you click that. If you are currently a medical student, you can click that. If you're in fellowship or residency, if you're a practicing physician, and other, that would be for anyone who is not currently in college yet, high school students or people that might have some college. So you can select that.
We have 77% having voted. Can we get it over 80%? And somebody else, all right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. With 81% having voted, here are the results.
Excellent. Okay, good to know. So we're not dealing with anyone who is paying back their loans yet, which is good. You've got some time, but this is good to know how to gear the webinar here. So we've got mostly undergrads and other. Linda, would you say that those are high school students?
They might be people who are working. In other words, they're non-traditional.
So
exactly. They're working and planning to return to medical school. They're doing a gap year. That would be my guess. Raise your hand if you're doing a gap year. Anybody want to raise their hand? Tell me if you're doing a gap year. Yep, that's it.
Oh, yep. That's it. There you go. We got some postbacks in here. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Good to know. Thanks so much, Linda. So my next question is, what kind of loans do you plan to take out or have already taken out for your education? So if you've already got some loans, do you have federal loans? Do you have private loans? Do you have a mix of both or neither? You lucky people with neither.
Yeah, let's see what's going on here. Okay. We're getting, can we get all right, we're at 64%. Can we get it up? 66%. We do have a couple of leaders on the content in the vote, but 72%. Can we get it over 80% again? 5, 4, come on. 3, 2, 1. All right, I guess people are up.
You got it.
I got it. I did it. That's right. 83% having voted. Here are the results.
Okay, great. So we've got 38%, pretty even split here between federal loans and a mix of both. So that's good to know. It means you already have some literacy around the federal loan process. No worries if you've never taken out loans before. I actually just went through my own experience taking out loans for the first time, and I know it's confusing, but we're here to make that easier. So let us keep going then.
Okay.
Excellent. So let's dive right in. So how should I pay for medical school? So you've gotten into medical school, or you're thinking about medical school, and then you realize that there's a price tag attached to that. So how do you pay for it? So there are several funding options, and I want to really emphasize, looking at all other options before looking at federal loans. So prioritize these first three, federal or private loans, excuse me. So prioritize these first three. 1, personal savings. 2, family contributions where available. 3, scholarships and fellowships, always good to get those. 4, federal student loans, and 5, private student loans. So I'm going to go into each of those options deeper now. So for a few steps to get started, the first thing you want to do is determine the cost of attendance for your medical school. And this is going to vary based on where the school is located and different costs, public versus private. And this is something that can be found on your school's financial aid website. It's a published figure. It can change each year. And basically the cost of attendance is a combination of the tuition, the fees, what they believe books will cost, the cost of living in the area, if you also need to have housing, all those different factors that go into living and getting an education at a medical school. That's the cost of attendance. To see if you're eligible for federal aid, you'll need to fill out a FAFSA. And for those of you that already have federal loans, you know exactly what this is. You need to fill out the FAFSA to understand how much federal aid you're eligible for. And to get more information about filling out a FAFSA, you can go to fafsa.ed.gov. So first, you want to consider financial aid that doesn't need to be paid back. So scholarships. Scholarships are awesome, and whenever they are available, there's so many more out there than people even realize. So what you want to look at is resources such as Unigo, Scholly, and your financial aid office. So Unigo and Scholly, those are online websites. And if you Google them, you can find their websites there. And they have a lot of different listings for different scholarships here. And also, of course, check with your financial aid office. And then for fellowships, you can also check with your financial aid office as well to see what's available. So then determine how much you can contribute. So when possible, you want to minimize the amount of loans that you're taking out to minimize the cost of those loans. So look at your personal savings, see if there's anything there that you can put towards your tuition, and also see if there's any available family contribution. So if you've exhausted those options, you've looked at personal savings, family contributions, scholarships, and fellowships, and you determine that you do in fact need to take out student loans. So there's federal student loans and there's private student loans, and we're going to talk about the differences between those. So federal government loans. Federal government loans, you take them out directly from the government, and they offer for medical school, there's 2 types of loans for any graduate program. They offer direct grad unsubsidized loans. It's a 10-year loan, so it's expected to be paid back in the 10 years after you graduate from medical school. The rate for these right now is at 6.24% APR, and that is for everyone that takes out these loans this year. They're all getting the same rate. So the loan rates are adjusted by the government each year, but anyone taking out a direct grad unsubsidized loan gets a 6.24% APR. Anyone who takes out a direct plus loan. So of course you want to take out as much as you can in direct grad loans if you are looking at federal loans, because those are cheaper. There's usually a maximum amount that you can take out, and it's $20,500. So that's the max. If you need to take out more than that, then you would go to the direct plus loan, which is also a 10-year loan, and that has a higher interest rate of 7.47%. And you can borrow as much as you need up to the school's cost of attendance. So keep in mind, cost of attendance, the school might determine a cost of living that's different from what your style of living or cost of living might be. So if you don't feel like you need to take out the full amount in loans up to the cost of attendance, you don't need to. You only need to take out what you think you'll need. But you are not able to borrow over the amount of the cost of attendance as set by the school. You need to seek out other sources if you needed more than the published cost of attendance. Now, government loans do come with some important protections that I want to mention, and I'll go into these a bit more later, but I do want to stress, even though these might have higher rates, there are protections such as income-based repayment plans, eligibility for federal loan forgiveness, and some other different protections I'll go into more. But federal loans, they do have their place and they do have their benefits. So CommonBond private loans. So if you, decide that you need loans, there are federal loans and private loans. And here at CommonBond, we do offer private education loans. As I mentioned, the federal loans only come in a 10-year term. CommonBond loans come in 5, 10, and 15-year terms, both fixed and variable. So what's a variable loan? A variable loan is where the interest rate is tied to a marketplace measure, and it goes up and down along with the market. So as the economy goes up and down, your rate and thus your monthly payment can go up and down. With a fixed rate loan, it's just like it sounds. You get one fixed rate and the rate will stay the same and your monthly payment will stay the same over the entire life of the loan. So our rates start at 3.08% for variable loans and 5.49% for fixed loans. But I do want to mention that our private loans require that you have a cosigner added to the loan, and the rate that you receive from us is going to be based on your cosigner's income and credit profile. So, at some points, obviously our rates are certainly lower. I'm going to go back a slide. These rates are certainly lower than these rates, but it really depends on your personal situation. If you don't want to have a cosigner, you would want to go with federal loans. If you do have a cosigner available that has a strong income and credit profile and you'd be able to get a lower interest rate, then you're going to possibly want to look at private loans and at least see what your available interest rates would be. So if you do decide to look to the private loan market for a student loan, why should you go with CommonBond? Well, we have competitive interest rates, as I just showed you on the previous slide. Our application is super simple. It's all done online. And, we really do value that experience. And that's why we really got into this market, because we saw how difficult it was to get student loans at a fair interest rate. So our application, we're constantly doing testing to make it an easier process. And another thing you want to think about are protections. So I did say that federal loans offer certain protections. CommonBond does have a lot of those same protections as well. For example, you are able to put your loan payments on hold if you had some difficulty with your cash flow. So we're talking about once you've graduated and you're already paying back the loans, if for some reason you couldn't make your payments, you can put your loan payments on hold the same way you can with federal loans. And our loans are also dischargeable in the case of death or permanent disability. So what that means is that if you weren't around, we would forgive your loan. You would not need to make payments on that loan. Another reason, award-winning customer service. I love saying this. We do have an award-winning customer service team. They won an award for customer service. So now I can say they're award winning. But when you call us, you get straight to a real person. There's no bots, there's no artificial intelligence. You just get straight to a real person who's there to help. We have a lot of resources on our website as well. We've got a lot of blog content, actually some content that Accepted just put up recently about student loans. So, we really value making sure that people understand their financial situation. And lastly, something unique to CommonBond is we do have a social mission, a social promise. So for every loan fully funded on our platform, we donate an education to a child in the developing world through an organization called Pencils of Promise. So it's nice to know that getting your loans actually helps someone else get their education. Okay, so what do you need to apply for a new student loan if you decide to take out a private loan? You need to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. You need to be attending one of 2,000 plus Title IV not-for-profit schools. So what is a Title IV school? It's a school that is in the United States that is eligible to receive federal aid, that is a not-for-profit school. So any school that qualifies there, you need to be attending one of those in order to get a private loan with CommonBond, and you need to be enrolled at least half-time. And lastly, you will need a credit-worthy cosigner in order to take out a private loan with CommonBond. How do you apply? You would visit commonbond.co/accepted. That's a special link for people who attended this webinar and for readers of Accepted. And you would click check eligibility. It's a really quick, easy process, and you could see what rates that you're eligible for. While you're there, you can see how much you can save with our easy-to-use calculator. So we do have a graduate student loan comparison tool. So you can look at, how much you would save by going with federal loans or going with private loans, and you can test out all of the different options to make the best financial decision for you. So let's talk about this. You finished medical school, and now you have to start paying back your loan. So I know this is maybe quite in the future for some of you, but there are some steps that you can take now that will guarantee that you will pay back as little as possible. So where do you start? So before we jump in here, I want to ask, for those of you that have student debt, how much student debt do you have currently? So we're going to put up another poll question now.
Okay, here comes.
Great. So for those of you with student debt, go ahead and answer that question here. I don't anticipate too much in those higher numbers since you guys have not gone to med school yet.
Right. Okay, we have about 66% having voted. Can we get the percentage up a little higher? We won't hold you to this, but it sure would be nice to give Caryn an indication of where you're at here. We're at 60, it's still collecting responses. It is going up. Okay, 76%. Can we get it over 80? Come on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to close. 79% having voted, so we did get a lot higher. And there are the results.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got the majority of you in the 0 to 50 range, and then going up from there. Okay, great. So good to know. Moving on here, don't worry about that debt that you already have or that debt that you might accrue in the future. We're going to break down exactly how all of that works. Okay, so this is the picture of the typical student that I see that you might be stressing out about what to do, how to understand all these terms. So I want to let you know that we are here to help you understand your student loan repayment options. So the type of employer and your financial situation are going to dictate which repayment option you choose, but not only that, it's also going to determine which type of loans you decide to take out. So don't turn off here. I promise this is still relevant even if you're not in medical school yet. So if you plan to work for a nonprofit employer, so nonprofit employers, there's nonprofit hospitals, any sort of nonprofit or government employer, And you have federal loans. If you decide to take out federal loans, there are plans called income-driven repayment plans, there's public service loan forgiveness, and there's student loan refinancing. If you have private loans, so if you decide to take out a loan from CommonBond, you can also take advantage of student loan refinancing to lower the cost of your debt. If you plan to work for a for-profit employer, so this would be private practice, a for-profit hospital, anything like that. So if you decide to work for a for-profit employer, you can take advantage of income-driven repayment plans and standard repayment plans. And if you for your federal loans, and if you have private loans, you can still use student loan refinancing. Don't worry if you don't know what these terms are. I'm going to go into each of them in much greater detail now. Okay, so income-driven repayment plans. What is an income-driven repayment plan? So this is just for federal loans. This is one of those benefits of federal loans that private loans don't have. So if you know that you're going to want to take advantage of income-driven repayment, you're going to want to take out federal loans instead of private loans. So with an income-driven repayment plan, your monthly payment is capped at a certain percentage of your income. So this is good for those who have a lower income, who wouldn't be able to afford standard monthly payments. So the standard federal loan, it's 10 years. You're supposed to have it fully paid off in 10 years. If your income is too low when compared to your debt, that you wouldn't be able to make that payment each month, then you'd want to take advantage of income-driven repayment. The benefit of this is it keeps your monthly payment really low, so it frees up cash flow for you to use towards other things in your life. But the con here is that it does increase the total cost of your loan. So if you stretch out that loan payment, it can go for up to 25 years. You can be making these small monthly payments. Even though the payments are smaller, you're making more of them. So it does add up to cost even more if you're on an income-driven repayment plan. However, if you plan to pursue public service loan forgiveness, so this is someone who's working in a nonprofit hospital or in the public sector or for the government and any nonprofit organization, if you plan to go down that path, you are also going to want to use an income-driven repayment plan, because in public service loan forgiveness, you make 10 years of payments, and after those 10 years, anything that's remaining on the loan is forgiven. So if you noticed previously, I said that you would pay off the loan in full in 10 years, not if you're on an income-driven repayment plan. So if you plan to take advantage of public service loan forgiveness, you want to be on an income-driven repayment plan, because that way you're making the smallest payments possible. And then at the end of making 10 years of those really small payments, any remaining balance on your loan is going to be forgiven. All right, so here's breaking down those income-driven repayment plans a bit better. There are 4 of them. The first is revised pay-as-you-earn, repay. The second is pay-as-you-earn, pay, income-based repayment, IBR, and income contingent repayment, ICR. And these are all pretty similar, but there are some differences. So just to go into the first here, repay. This is for those that take out direct loans, so direct federal loans, and your monthly payment would be 10% of your discretionary income. So for those of you, it's for anyone that they would need to submit their monthly pay stub or their biweekly pay stub to the government, to their federal loan servicer. And then the federal loan servicer takes a look at that pay stub, determines what 10% of your discretionary income is, and that's what you would need to pay as your monthly payment each month. The repayment period for repay plans is 20 years for undergrad loans. So if you have undergrad loans already, it would be, you'd make payments on those loans for 20 years, and then the remaining balance would be forgiven. And it would be 25 years for any loans taken out for medical school. There is no minimum income or maximum income requirement to enter a repay plan. The next, pay, is pretty similar, same thing as repay, except that for the repayment period, it's 20 years regardless of whether it's an undergrad or graduate loan. And to enter this plan, Your income must be low compared to your eligible federal student loan debt. So what does that mean? You would submit the same thing. You'd submit your income information to the government, and they have specific requirements on whether your income is low enough to be in this plan when compared to your debt. The next plan, income-based repayment, this is for direct loan and FFEL borrowers. So FFEL is another type of loan that you can take out, but I do believe it's for undergrad, so it wouldn't apply here for medical school loans. But if you had that, you could be in this program. For the monthly payment, it is 10% of your discretionary income if you borrowed on or after July 2014. Probably would be after for most of you, so you don't need to worry about the 15% here. Repayment period, it would be 20 years if you borrowed on or after July 2014, or 25 years if it's an older loan. And same thing, there's an income requirement here. So your income must be low compared to your eligible federal student loan debt. And the last plan, income contingent repayment. Something to note about income contingent repayment that's important. This can be used for those with Parent Plus loans. So if your parents end up taking out a Parent Plus loan to help pay for your education, they can use this plan as an income-driven repayment plan to minimize their monthly payment. The other thing here is that ICR has the highest monthly payment. It's 20% of your discretionary income, or what you would pay on a 12-year fixed plan as adjusted for your income. And the repayment period on this is 25 years. So you need to make payments for 25 years, and then anything after that would be forgiven. All right, stick with me here. I know that was a lot, but we're going to go on to some easier stuff. Standard repayment plans. In a standard repayment plan, so when you take out a loan from the government, you're automatically enrolled in a standard repayment plan, and you would repay the loan in full in 10 to 25 years based on the type of loan that you take out. The benefit is that it is a lower overall cost, so lower total cost than being on an income-driven plan. But the negative is that it would have a higher monthly payment than the income-driven plan, so cost benefit here. And the standard plans that are offered, standard repayment, you pay off your loan in 10 years. You have the same payment each month. The benefit is that you save money on interest versus longer term plans, and the drawback is that you'd have the highest monthly payment. In a graduated repayment plan, you pay off your loan in 10 years, and payments would start low and go up every 2 years, but you'd still have the loan completely paid off after 10 years. The benefit of this is that you save now while your income is low, and you pay more when your income can handle it. The drawback is that you're betting on making more money in the future, but if that's a pretty safe bet, maybe a graduated repayment plan is a good option for you. And then lastly, an extended repayment plan where you pay off your loan in full in 25 years. This can be fixed or graduated. And the benefit of this is that it's a general lower monthly payment than the other standard plans, but the drawback is that it is the highest total cost. If you want to enroll in any of these plans, particularly if you already have student debt, you can be enrolled in any of these plans right now. To do that, you can just call up your federal loan servicer and ask to be transferred into those plans. All right, so some other important notes about federal loans, repayment options for federal loans. And what we've been talking about here is all federal loans, so we haven't been talking about private loans. So federal loans offer forbearance. So with a federal loan, you can put the loan in forbearance, which pauses repayment completely. Interest continues to accrue during this time and will be capitalized at the end of the forbearance period. So what does that mean, capitalized? It means that at the end of that period of time where you stop paying, all of the interest that accrued will be added on to your loan balance. So thus your monthly payments would go up moving forward because you have more to pay back over that period of time. And you can do this, you can be in forbearance for up to 12 months. So when would you use forbearance? You could use forbearance if you're in your residency. You can use forbearance if you are experiencing some sort of economic hardship and you aren't able to make your payments. But you do want to be careful when you use it because it does increase the total cost of the loan. So public service loan forgiveness, this is the golden thing that I hear a lot of people asking me about. How can I get my loans forgiven? So public service loan forgiveness, it forgives the remaining balance on direct federal loans after you've made 120 qualifying monthly payments under a qualifying repayment plan. Qualifying repayment plan is an income-based repayment plan. So you'd want to be making 120 income-based payments while you are working full-time for a qualifying employer. So what is a qualifying employer? Who qualifies? Those who are employed at government organizations at any level, those working at a not-for-profit organization that is tax exempt, and other types of not-for-profit organizations that provide certain types of qualifying public services. If in the future you have questions about your employer, about whether or not they qualify, you can ask your HR department. But I do see that this is a big motivator for a lot of doctors that do start out working in nonprofit hospitals because they do know about this loan forgiveness program. Okay, so everything we just discussed was only in relation to federal and student loans. Now we're going to talk about refinancing, which is for federal and private student loans. But you know what, I realized first I wanted to ask, after we got through that section, the last poll question here, what type of employer do you plan to work for in the medical field? So knowing what I just told you about all the different options, do you plan to work for a nonprofit or government hospital or employer? Or do you plan to work for a for-profit hospital or private practice? Or you're not sure yet?
So where do you fall in that one? I'm getting a good response to this question.
Yeah.
Okay. We're over 80%, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, with 84% having voted.
Excellent. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Not sure. So a lot of people still exploring their options. Good, that's what you should be doing. And about a third looking at nonprofit employers, which is great. So definitely keep in mind, if you plan to work for a nonprofit, take out federal loans as opposed to private loans, because those are eligible for public service loan forgiveness. Private loans are not eligible for public service loan forgiveness. I want to make sure everyone understands that. So that's the important point there.
Okay.
All right, so what about student loan refinancing? So refinancing is for federal and private loans. Refinancing means we pay off your existing loan, we give you a new loan, and you get a lower interest rate. So this is for you've already taken out loans, you've finished medical school, you're now working, and you want to know how you can lower the cost of that student debt. So what are the benefits of student loan refinancing? So here are the 4 things you want to think about when thinking about refinancing your student loans. So first and foremost is the savings potential. When you refinance, you lower your interest rate. So what situation would this work? What does this make sense for those who are going to medical school? So for example, you took out federal loans and private loans, and maybe you've decided that you're going to work for a for-profit hospital or go into private practice. But you've got these federal loans that have these high interest rates, 6, 7, 8%, and you want to lower the cost of those. You want to lower that interest rate. So when you refinance, you lower the interest rate and you can save thousands over the life of the loan. The average doctor that has refinanced their loans with CommonBond saves over $50,000 on their student loan payments. So serious amount of savings available there. The next thing you want to consider when thinking about refinancing is ease. So if you do, you went to undergrad and medical school, maybe you took out a lot of different loans for different semesters, different years, and you've got different accounts at many, different servicers. What we can do is we can pay off all of those loans and consolidate them together. So you just have one easy monthly payment to handle. The next thing you want to think about are protections. So I did mention that there are federal protections. And CommonBond also has a lot of those same protections. For example, we can defer payments if you decide to go back to school later on. or if you were to experience economic hardship, or lose your job, something like that, we can put your loan payments on hold for up to 2 years. So with federal loans, you actually have 1 year available, and with CommonBond, you have 2 years of forbearance available. So good to know there. And lastly, when you're looking at refinancing, there's a lot of different companies out there that are refinancing loans now. And when you're looking at the field, you want to think about, going with a lender that you can trust, because, we offer loans anywhere from 5-year loans to 20 years. And if you're getting into a committed 20-year relationship with someone, you want to know that you're with someone that you can trust, a lender that you can grow with, that'll understand your needs. Okay, so why are refinancing companies like CommonBond able to offer a lower rate? What is this magic? So essentially, when you take out loans for the government, as I mentioned, they offer one blanket rate for the entire population. You might have an 800 credit score, but your neighbor has a 300 credit score, and you would both get the same interest rate for anyone that's taking out loans that year. So what CommonBond does is we use technology and data to get to know you, to give you a lower interest rate based on what you deserve. So we look at things like free cash flow, credit history, earnings potential, education, location, and lots of different factors to give you a rate that's specific to you. The products that we offer, we have 3 products. The first are variable rate loans. So I mentioned these before. They're rates that can go up and down monthly as tied to the marketplace. They're a bit riskier, and because of that risk, they do tend to be our lowest rates, since you would be assuming some of that risk yourself. But if you are a bit more risk averse like I am, you might want to go with a fixed rate loan. And with a fixed rate loan, the rate and thus the monthly payment are locked. And we offer variable and fixed rate loans for refinancing in 5, 7, 10, 15, and 20-year increments. And the last thing that we have is a hybrid rate loan. It's a 10-year loan. So it's fixed for the first 5 years and then variable for the second 5 years. So how do you know if refinancing is right for you? So this is a really important chart, especially for those of you that are going to be working in nonprofits. So first and foremost, save with a lower interest rate. When you refinance your loans with CommonBond, you can get a lower interest rate. When you keep your federal loans where they are, there's no opportunity to lower your interest rate. Next, consolidate into one monthly payment. You can do that, as I mentioned. We can pay off all your loans and give you one easy loan. The federal government also has consolidation programs. So if you do end up taking out multiple loans for multiple years of med school, they do have consolidation programs where you can combine those into one. They just won't lower your interest rate. So you'll get one rate that's a weighted average of all the rates that you already have. Discharge your obligation in the event of death or disability. Our refinance loans have this just like our new in-school loans. If anything were to happen to you, same like federal loans, your loans would be forgiven. Next, add a cosigner to potentially reduce your rate. So when you refinance your loans, it is not required to have a cosigner for everyone. We look at everyone and their eligibility differently. It's not like when you take out the private loan if you're just starting school. For the private loans to go to school, we do require a cosigner for everyone, but for our refinance loans, you don't automatically have to have a cosigner. But if you do have someone that's available to be a cosigner, by adding them onto your loan, you can get an even lower interest rate. These next 2 points are really important to you guys. So taking advantage of income-driven repayment. So if you do plan to take advantage of an income-driven repayment program in the future, you should not refinance your federal loans, because CommonBond does not offer income-driven repayment plans. Keep those federal loans where they are. And also public service loan forgiveness. If you plan to take advantage of this, you should not refinance your federal loans, because then they're no longer eligible for that program. If you do end up with a mix of both federal and private loans, you can still just refinance your private loans, but do not refinance the federal loans, because then you'd be missing out on that benefit. All right, so what else do you need to know? So here's what you need to refinance with CommonBond. So if you're thinking about for the future, or if some of you even want to start refinancing your undergrad loans now, if you've already finished your undergraduate degree. We look for a good credit score, so typically 660 or above. If you don't meet this, you can add a cosigner that meets this requirement. We look for proof of employment, so you do need to be employed in order to refinance your loans. If you're not employed or if you're in residency, you can add a cosigner who meets this requirement. You need to be a US citizen or permanent resident. We need 3 documents, so proof of residence, proof of income, and your current loan statements. And lastly, we do have an income requirement, so you do need to have a 4-year degree from a Title IV school. So you need to have already received your bachelor's degree in order to refinance with us. There are no fees. There's no fees at all involved in the refinancing process. So you can pay off your loan faster without any penalty. There's no prepayment fees. There's no origination fees. There's no fees at all. Getting your rate is really quick and easy. The initial application process takes 5 minutes and does not affect your credit score. That's important. Filling out an application to get your rate for refinancing is not binding. So if you want to start with refinancing now with your undergrad loans, you can fill out an application now, and it is not binding, just to see what rates you would receive. Our friendly care team, I keep talking them up, but they are really stellar, is a call, click, or chat away. You can reach them, and this is for both refinancing or new student loans. You can reach them at 800-975-7812. You can email them at care@commonbond.co. And we also have a live chat function on our website that you can use to speak with a real person as well. No bots, no artificial intelligence, real people. All right, so how do I get started with a new private loan or refinancing? So if either of those options sound like they work for you, visit commonbond.co/accepted to get started on a new loan. If you are starting medical school next year and you know you want to take out a private loan, you can get started there. Or if you want to start refinancing now, visit commonbond.co/accepted refi to get started there. All right, that's it. We have hit the Q&A. So Linda.
Okay, we got quite a few questions here. We got a lot.
Hit me.
I think I heard that Caribbean schools are not eligible to receive loans from CommonBond. Is that correct? That's from Nero.
Yep. So great question. Yes, that is correct. A lot of Caribbean schools are for-profit schools, and for that reason, unfortunately, we are not able to lend to them.
Okay, let me see what else we have here. I think you answered this. Barbara asked, is there a penalty to pay early? I think you said there's not one. Is that correct? There's no prepayment penalty?
That's correct. No prepayment penalties.
All right. And then let's see, what else do we have? Nero asks, if pursuing the PSLF, are you taxed on the unpaid portion of your loan? I guess the forgiven portion of your loan. Do you know?
You are not. Yeah, I do know. So for PSLF, you are not taxed on the forgiven portion of your loan. If you do take advantage of income-driven repayment and you're not planning to pursue PSLF, so what that means is that you need income-driven repayment because your income is not high enough to make the payments, but after you make minimum payments for 25 years and then the remaining balance on that is forgiven. In that situation, if you're using income-driven repayment but you are not using it for public service loan forgiveness, then yes, that forgiven amount is taxed. But if you are doing PSLF, the forgiven amount is not taxed.
Got it. All right. Thank you. Andrea asks if you, so you, I assume meaning a CommonBond, accrue interest at 3.8% for during medical school. In other words, is interest accruing while they're in medical school? I think that's the question.
Yes, interest would accrue while you are in medical school.
Okay. And let's see. Sarah asks, if you are pursuing a field in medicine that has a higher income potential, such as surgery, should you avoid income-based repayment federal loans? Interesting question.
Great question. So not necessarily avoid, you just might not need to take advantage of an income-driven repayment plan. So what I'd recommend for you is, check out what rates you could get in the private market. If they are lower than the rates that you could get from federal loans, then go with the private loans if you know that you're not going to be taking advantage of income-driven repayment or public service loan forgiveness.
All right. Alex asks, does refinancing affect your credit score in any way?
Great question. So It does not. It can have, when you refinance, you are doing a credit check. So the beginning of the application uses a soft credit check, which does not negatively impact your credit. And from there, you're able to see your estimated rates. If you do decide to move forward to lock in one of those rates, then we do need to do a hard credit check, which does have a small negative impact on credit score. So during the application process, there is that small hit there, but it is just a few points and it does bounce back after a few months. The other thing is that if refinancing helps you make regular monthly payments, more on time, more often, that can actually help raise your credit score.
Okay. Barbara asks, can you make a payment and apply to interest while in medical school?
Yes, absolutely. So when you make a payment, let's say you're in medical school, interest is accruing, you want to pay down that interest while you're in school so it doesn't get added onto your principal balance at the end of school, that's totally fine. You can log into your account and make payments whenever you like, even though you don't need to.
Got it. John asks, does the 25-year, 15-year, etc. start when you take out the loan or when you graduate medical school?
It would start from 6 months after you
cut out.
It starts.
What, Caryn, you cut out there.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, it would start from 6 months after you graduate from medical school. That's when the repayment period would start.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Dahlia asks if there are medical schools that have full scholarships. Do you know the answer to that question?
I actually don't. I sure hope there are.
I think there are, but I also don't know for sure.
Don't actually know if there are.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there are, but they're not easy to come by, that's for sure.
Yeah. I hope you get it though.
Right. We did that one. Okay, so there are a couple of questions from Nero about the PSLF, the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, being capped. The Obama administration had mentioned the $57,000 cap, and the Trump administration has mentioned getting rid of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program altogether. Do you have any feedback on either number?
Yeah, so the cap, I wouldn't worry too much about that because after making minimum payments for 10 years, that's actually not something I'm familiar with, the cap, so I'd need to get back to you on that. But in terms of, I've definitely heard a lot about, what is the future of PSLF and people, worried about that going away with the new administration. I would say nothing is going, I'm not in politics, of course, so I can't predict what's going to happen, but from what I've heard from my sources that are closer to the field, they're saying that, anyone that takes out loans within the next few years will be grandfathered into the program, that if anything were to happen to the program, it would be a little longer in the future. So the people that are in school now and they're starting school now know that they can still take advantage of that program.
Okay. And Maylee asks, since medical school is for 4 years, is the amount you are eligible for the loan given to you annually, or does the loan only cover the first 1 year of medical school? It's a good question.
Sorry, you just cut out.
I just cut out. Okay. All right, let me try
right now.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I got it. I pulled it up. Okay. Medical school is for 4 years. The amount you are eligible for the loan given to you annually, or does the loan? Okay. Great. So you would need to reapply each year for loans. So each year you'd need to fill out a new FAFSA if you were applying for federal loans, or fill out a new application with CommonBond or another private lender for private loans.
Okay. And then let's see. Okay. And there's a question here from Nero about paying, is the interest being paid on the principal only, or on the accrued interest plus the principal? In other words, is it compounded?
Sure. So interest is not compounded. It's daily simple interest. So
You cut out. You cut out.
oh no.
You're back again.
Okay. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. So the interest is only charged on the principal balance. It's not compounded.
Okay. Let's see what else we have. Somebody's asking, is medical school worth all the loans? Is medical school FAFSA based on my income or my parents' income?
It depends. So you can apply yourself or you can apply as an independent student. You can apply as an independent student or you can apply with your parents. I do believe that if you are not making an income, they do require you to list some of your parents' information.
Okay. And then Andrea's asking you to please clarify, you reapply for a loan each year of medical school?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I mean, obviously you have to reapply because you're not guaranteed that you're going to get the loan the second, the third, the fourth year of medical school. But if one is doing what one's supposed to do, has decent grades, etc., I would assume that in most cases those reapplications are approved, right? Same amount.
Yes.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be an issue with getting those loans. You just need to fill out the information each time.
Okay. There's another question here I just don't quite understand. Oh, here's another one from Jovi. What if a cosigner dies?
Good question. So if you have a loan and the cosigner dies, nothing would happen to your loan. Your loan would still stay the same. If you have a loan, so you're the primary borrower and you have a cosigner, and then you were to pass away, if there is a cosigner on that loan, then the cosigner would be responsible. But if there's no cosigner, like for example on a refinance loan or on a federal loan that you take out for your tuition, when there's no cosigner present, the loan is forgiven. If there is a cosigner present, then the loan would be the responsibility of the cosigner if something were to happen to you. If, let's say, that cosigner died, you had a cosigner, then the cosigner dies, and then anyway, yes, if the cosigner isn't present, then they would not need to pay the loan, obviously.
Right. Okay. Okay, Eric is asking, and I think the part of the answer here is that you covered this in the beginning part of the webinar. How is CommonBond different from financial aid? Can we apply for financial aid and get loans, grants for medical school? Sorry, I came a little late to the webinar. We are going to we are recording this, and you should be getting emails, in the next couple of days telling you where you can review this information again, including the difference between public, government loans and private loans, which I think is basically the answer. But Caryn, I should let you answer since you know the answer and I don't.
Yeah, no problem. Great question. Financial aid, specifically if you're talking about your financial aid office, I would always speak to them because they'll have the best information specific to your program. And also they'll have information about scholarships and fellowships that are available to students of that school. So I would always check with financial aid first. They do have, grants available there. Financial aid can also help you get your federal loans. So the main difference between CommonBond and financial aid is that financial aid, has a lot more specific information to you. CommonBond is an organization that can provide private loans in the case that is the best option for you. And we can also refinance loans once you've graduated.
Okay. Alexander's asking if the information you presented this evening through the webinar is available in writing somewhere. In other words, could he review it in writing as opposed to the video format?
Yeah, I'm happy to send over the slides. I know it was a ton of information, so thank
Yeah.
you everyone so much for hanging in here. I know it's a lot to cover in 1 hour. But yeah, we can definitely send over a copy of the slides. And also at commonbond.co, our website, we do have an FAQ page with lots of different resources about student loans.
Okay. And I think that's about it. And we're ending just on time, and we've gone. Well, one more question. Okay, we're getting a couple of requests for the slides. So I guess you're
Yeah.
going. Yeah, you can also maybe go back to the slide where you had the URLs, or if you.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, those would be the pages to go to. You can also email support@accepted.com, and maybe Caryn, you can send us a
And
link to
here's
it.
my info.
Yeah. Okay.
If,
There you go.
yeah, if anyone, and that's my
Okay.
face.
And yes, and we're getting lots of thank yous. One more question. If your parents are not helping you in medical school, then why would you have to include their income on the FAFSA? And again, lots of thank yous are coming in. You're very welcome.
Thanks, everyone. And to answer that question, you know, I think they're just trying to get a sense of your financial picture. I'm not 100% sure if med school students do need to include their parents' income. Honestly, I would just double check with that with the FAFSA, with federal student aid. You can go to studentaid.gov, and I think that will have some more information.
Okay. All right. And with that, Caryn, I want to thank you for this great webinar, and I want to thank all the attendees for being here and attending, and for their answers and their questions, and of course their time and attention. As you leave, you'll get a survey. Please take a second to complete the short survey. We really do value your feedback. You can review this webinar. As I mentioned, we'll be sending out a link to where you can see it again. And we will also send out an email letting you know when it's available online. Thank you again, and best of luck with your medical school applications.